Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of the 1st of January 2025 for the day of 1043. So this is the first sit rep for the year, or at least the first sit rep about the year, first day of the year. So anyway, a lot of very significant things have happened because the Russians seems to have expanded their operations in the special military operation. There's quite a number of front lines suddenly have some unusual or extraordinary offensive operations, geolocations showing Russian forces appearing in new locations and all at the same time. So this might be a beginning of a new phase of Russian operations in Ukraine. And I'm going to start off with the Kherson front because, yeah, why not? So, and the reporting from the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they mentioned a Zabish Island. So the Bish Island, which is the Bish Island, the Bish, there is fighting reported over in this island. So this, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that the Russians attacked twice in this region. Oh, oops! So that's so puny. No puny arrows. So around these areas here. So it's a bit interesting that the Russians actually launched an offensive in the river delta of the Dnipro River. A very unusual. So no, and this is not just the only unusual things. There is offensive. If you watch the frontline changes report, you would have known that the Russians also launched offensive in the Siversk front, the Zaporizhia front, and yeah, it's just a bunch of very unusual stuff. So initially, they mentioned there is an attack in the Dnipro direction. Then after that, they mentioned it was at Zabish Island. So this is what it was. The Russian Defense Ministry merely mentioned shelling at Kherson as well as Pridniprovsky. And they also mentioned one more place, which is over at Berislav. So we will continue to monitor whether this will become a Russian Kherson offensive with the intention of retaking the northern part of Kherson. So let's wait and see. We move into the Zaporizhia front. As mentioned just now, there was some interesting developments. Other than the shelling reported at Stepno-Kursk, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukrainian Defense Ministry mentioned attack over at Novoondreyevka. However, what was not mentioned in the reports was fighting reported at Bilokhaya. At Bilokhaya, there is geolocation of Russian forces entering into the eastern part, probably most likely coming from the Luhivsky region, and this invalidates Ukrainian claims that they are at Luhivsky, which means Russian forces clearly have Luhivsky and they have entered into Bilokhaya, which is extremely unusual that the Russians have actually attacked into the settlement. So this mark one of this first one of the first things they're going to be reporting on this new phase of Russian offensive. So that's something that happens in this area. As we move into the Velika Novosilka sector, Russian forces have attacked over at Zelenopole, Novosilka, Nekushny, Vremivka, Velika Novosilka, and Novikoma. The significant changes was at the Vremivka Nekushny region, where the Russian forces, as expected, going down this tree line, as I did mention in my analysis before, and pushing in the direction of Vremivka, which would cut off the road if the attack continued to go into Vremivka, killing off Nekushny, forcing a Ukrainian withdrawal in the future. Oh, I forgot that there's a black box over there. So sorry. Yeah, now you can actually see what I was talking about. So actually, I should push this down a bit so you can actually see what Yeah, so there is a Velika Novosilka over here, and then of this Fremivka. So that's the current situation. The Russians have already cut off the road with their presence over in this northern push, and so definitely the situation is already very complicated for the Ukrainians over in this region here. For the Ukrainians usually call this the Vremivka or Bremivka direction. But I call this the Velika Novosilka direction. So if you see reports talking about the Vremivka direction, It's actually talking about the Velika-Novosibirsk front. We move into the Constantinople sector, where the Russians are attacking towards Constantinople, Roslif, as well as Bahatil. So that's usual. That's pretty much more or less the same thing. I'm quite sure there's frontline changes that is not reported in this sector. So let's just wait for more information. Over at the Uzbenivka, Uzbenivka region, the Russian forces have been geolocated on the east of Yantarne, which means that the Russian forces have advanced further from the Uzbenivka region, and they closed off this impossible salient, and they have advanced and on the verge of flanking Yantarne from the north, as the Ukrainians are defending in Yantarne. So this will going to force the Ukrainian withdrawal as well. So that's rather bad. North of this location is just as bad. The over at the Battle of Kurakove, Russian forces have expanded control in the region in the northwestern or western part of Kurakove. In the southern flanking operation, the Russian forces successfully taken the entire chain of entrenchment, and they have probably starting to go up of these tree lines, and they are now on the verge of operating into the western part, cutting off any retreat, creating a potential encirclement for any Ukrainian forces that are defending at that region. And with this frontline change also marks the end of the mapping by the Ukrainian side of any potential presence over in the Pivdini sector or the Pivdini district of Kurakove. So the Battle of Kurakove is going to come to the end very, very soon. With these frontline changes and the developments, this is no longer tenable for the Ukrainians to continue to hold defense around here. I think a withdrawal definitely is already in queue, especially as I mentioned yesterday, Kurakove with this geolocation just shows me that the Ukrainian forces basically have abandoned the position. In the rest of the Kurakove sector and also known as Slovianka, Russian forces attacking Dashny, Petropavlivka, as well as Slovianka. And over at Petropavlivka, the Russian forces basically have entered into the eastern part of Petropavlivka. Geolocation of Russian forces at Sonsevka, not particularly important. Ukrainian forces have equipments getting hit by FPV drones on the east of Andriivka and Uklakli. Basically, these are troops holding positions, preparing against potential Russian onslaughts, and they are getting hit. So the Russians are pushing through. Russians are already previously reported to be inside Shevchenko, so things are getting really bad. With this operation at Petropavlivka, they could potentially continue to head westward and conduct this northern flanking movement to flank the northern direction of Andriivka, creating tactical problems for the Ukrainians. So if you zoom in, Petropavlivka, the Russian forces basically entered into the forest. Basically, they storm in. There's some ugly arrows like this. They just storm in, and this marks the frontline change in this sector. I feel like Petropavlivka is not exactly the best place to make defenses or to try to defend. But they can try. It's not exactly wrong. It's not exactly the worst place, but definitely it's not. It doesn't really offer us particularly anything special in terms of defensive buff. Over in the Ukrainka region, the Russian forces are attacking at Ukrainka region. Novo Olenivka was mentioned in the reports, and as the Russians continue to push northwest of Olenivka. So let me pull down a bit so that I can talk a bit more. So Russian forces is now on the verge of full capture of Novo Yelizaveta, and with the success of that, they will actually push toward Nadievka. The Russians are pushing towards Novo Alexandrievka through this push in this frontline change, and which was marked by this geolocation. And so that's the current situation in this sector. The area here is it's just Russians pushing down all the different gullies, which is more helpful in terms of defensive posture because of all the additional trees and the water bodies and whatnot. The As you move further, you can see that this is already the border between Dnipro and Donetsk. So the distance between this point to the current geolocation is around 7.5 kilometers. If you look from the Nadievka direction one, the closest point is 9 kilometers. So the Russians are on the verge, less than 10 kilometers to reaching the border at Dnipro. So this is actually pretty scary, I would say. If you look at from the Ukrainian perspective, that the Russians actually arrived at the Dnipro region. Over in the Pokrov sector, Russian forces are fighting over in Novovasilivka, if I'm not wrong, yeah, Novovasilivka, Solone, Vovkove, towards Kotliny, Piszczany, Shevchenko, towards Pokrov, Vorozhenia, Zeleny, Dechensky, as well as Lysivka. And with the main changes still looking to be on the western part, where the Russian forces are establishing a stronger position over from Solone all the way to Vovkove, and they are trying to hit towards Kotliny to cut off the highway towards Zaporizhia from Pokrov. So this is continued to be the situation, and the Russians is probably on the verge of capture of Solone and Novovasilivka. If you zoom in, you can see that the Russian forces have basically entered into the western part of Novovasilivka. And this mapping now, this way I map it in this way is a conservative mapping. There is a possibility that the Russians actually, captured the entire eastern part of Novovasilivka. That is actually a high possibility, just that I try to map it in a more conservative way. And at Solone, the Russians are also on the verge of full capture. Just a little bit of Solone left. So things are looking super bad for the Ukrainians in this sector. The continuous gradual progress by the Russian forces just show that the Ukrainians are on the back foot in this sector. And Vovkove probably is already fully captured, but now waiting for confirmation from the Ukrainians, or at least some announcement from the Russian Defense Ministry. So that's the current sector in this situation in this sector. Over in the Minograd sector, there's nothing much, so I want to cover in this way the northern flank. So Russian forces have also launched a new direction of offensive, and this time around, this is the northern flank of the Pokrov front. This is part of the new phases of operation of offensive, going from this the Kherson, the Dnipro rivers, the delta, and then we have the offensive over at Bilokhaya. This is the other one, and this one is pretty significant because the Russian forces basically capture or allegedly captured Vozdvizenka, as well as securing the entire northern part of Timofeyevka and Lozovaske. This is a massive capture. The Russians also, for the first time in a long time, I would say, are being mentioned to be attacking Baranivka. This is merely the second and third time that it was mentioned, and basically the past 2 days that there is an attack at Baranivka. Russian forces are also pushing towards Melanivka and Myrolibivka. So this sector has become pretty serious. The Russians are making a real push, and the objective is the highway junction, just off Vodiane Druhi. So this is basically here. So this is a very significant development as well, and this is not just the only, there's so many significant developments in this rep that I want to talk about. This is just one of them. Over in Toreks, similar crazy things is happening, but at the entire front line, we have fighting reported at Olesandropil, Skrebenivka, and Toreks, as well as Dilievka. The main crazy things is over in the Battle of Toreks, with the Russian forces suddenly geolocated in the far northwest of Toreks city. And this means that the entire industrial area has fallen to the Russians, as the Russians basically continue to advance down the rest of the city. So this front line change is massive, and kept the entire of the industrial zone is now fully under Russian control. So the battle continues, but this amount of change in the urban warfare situation just show is actually a very bad news, which means that the Ukrainians may be redrawing or have already redrawn from Donetsk. And yeah, this is actually super bad for the Ukrainians. I think we will go to see a very huge advance in Torex in the near future, and probably the fall of the entire city very, very soon. Over the Bakhmut front, we have fighting reported at Chasivya, Stupovsky, and Peteshny. Yesterday we have these major updates over in Chasivya, which is probably part of this new offensive. So something to watch out for. But tentatively, the past 24 hours, there isn't anything at Chasivya. Over at the Siversk front, this is yet another part where there was major offensive operations. The Serbianka was mentioned, according to information from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. There's some kind of Russian attacks in this sector, and based on geolocation, Russian forces has returned to Bilohorevka, taking some grounds over there. Another geolocation appears in the northwest of Zolotarevka, and this also marks some advance, which means that the Russian forces are now closing in this direction, in the direction towards Krychorivka, and probably towards Serbianka, and a northern flanking operation against Verkhovno-Okayamsky. This is probably what is currently happening. Ukrainians have a major defense line on the eastern part of Siversk, and of course this is the final line of defense. There is of course further forward lines all over the place that is defending Siversk front. So the Russians seems to be trying something new. This push will be interesting to watch to see whether they can actually make a breakthrough. So this is the Siversk front. Some very, very significant update from this sector. Over in the Liman front, we have Russian forces attacking at Ivanivka, Terny, Torske, as well as Serbianske forestry. I think I saw some comments talking about major parts of the forest already taken by the Russian forces. I have no idea. No, I mean, I only follow my own trusted sources. If some other Russian mappings or whatnot, map it more advanced, I mean, yeah, there's them. DPA's position remains to be as this. Moving to the Sverdlovsk front or Makievka sector, there is fighting reported in Makievka, but that's about it. Nothing at Kharkivka. We move into the Borova front. At the Borova front, I think I can squeeze in even some of the Pischani, but never mind, let's do this. So at the Borova front, we have fighting reported at Sverdlovsk, Novosahievka, Kopanki, and fighting reported Zeleny High, Lozova, and Nova Kuliakivka was mentioned. The above two is part of the Pischani front, but it's related, as this is all part of the same major battlefront towards Borova. So this is currently happening. If you scroll up over at the Pischani front, fighting is still being reported at Kolonistivka as well as Zarizove, despite there is already push from Lozova and Novokrolyakivka towards Borova. So this is a situation at the Pischani front. Over in the Kupiansk front, there is shelling reported at Kusharivka, not very important. And at Voreshna, there is still fighting being reported over there. So, but there's not much information about the sector in that region. We move into Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, we have fighting reported at Voschansk, Maniplokrori, and there's shelling reported in this new location called Simenivka. So which is a bit unusual, mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. I don't think this is a ground attack. This was probably some shelling by the Russian forces against Ukrainians reserves in this sector. So that's all at the Kharkiv front, and we move into the Kursk front. At the Kursk front, this is also part of this new offensive where we have fighting reported over in the eastern and southern flank. So if you move into the southern flank, we have fighting reported over at Krylokivka. Previously, fighting was reported at Makhnovka. However, we don't have this anymore. The fighting is now reported at Zamoste and Sudzha. Sudzha itself is mentioned in the Russian Defense Ministry's report of the operations in Kursk. The fact that Manovka was not mentioned might suggest that the Russians may have already taken it, and they are now advancing on Zamoste and towards Sudzha in this southern flanking operation that's currently happening. Russian forces previously attacked Molovoye, so tentatively the Ukrainians may have a stronger position in the Krylovka region, trying to push back the Russian advance at Krylovka. So something very interesting to watch around here. Maybe a battlefield analysis is poised, for me to work on. So over in this eastern flank, Russian forces attacking Martinovka and Cherkaskoye Parashnoye. So that's all in this sector. This is part of this very new operations where the Russians are now attacking in this manner. Yeah, you can see that everything is moving towards Sudzha right now, ignoring what's happening in the east and the west, in the western flank and the northern flank. So we go into the northern flank. We have fighting reported at Marevka, Pogrebki, Novoya Sorokina, as well as Malaya Loknia. So this is it could coming from the other side, who knows? But this is a lot more activities than usual in the northern flank. So there's something to watch. And over on the western flank, we have fighting reported at Leonidovo, Loknia, Darino, as well as Nikolaevo Darino. So the intensity seems to have lessened. Sverdiklovo and Lebedivka was not mentioned, so it is interesting. So let's see how this continue to play out. But that's all from the Kherson, from the Kursk front, and that's about it. So this is the entirety for the Siversk for the first day of 2025. So do press the like button, do subscribe, and I did do a 2024 full year frontline history. So do check it out over here. And yeah, that's it. And check out the news. The Russian gas to Moldova has been cut off because of Ukraine not renewing the transit agreement. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next update.